Welcome, Capricorn, to your reading for the second half of February 2024. So this is for Capricorn, Sun, Moon, Rising, and if you have Sun, Moon, or Pluto in the 10th house. Hope you're having a good week. The astrology is a bit crunchy. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way. And yeah, we'll just jump right in. So, Capricorn, for you showing up in the center of this Axis Mundi, we have the Storm. Somebody else got this card too. I think it was Scorpio, actually. So what does the Storm represent? It's not an easy card. I'm just going to be honest with you. It is the way that it looks. It can be akin to the Tower card as well in the tarot. And so the Storm inherently has an element of destruction to it, no matter what, whether it's, lightning striking the ground and creating a forest fire, or lightning striking a person, or a tornado or hurricane coming through and, picking up tractors. And there is a chaos, a darkness, a fear, right? A fear of survival, and everything no longer being what it once was. That's inherently what's there. So when the Storm card comes up, yes, it is a challenge. You are being initiated. No doubt. The astrology, it's hard right now. And so, yeah, I feel the struggle. But the lesson here is to stay connected to your body and to stay connected to your breath. And in your breath, you come back into center. And so you are able to be at the eye of the storm. You are able to stay in calmness, in grounding, and away from the chaos and the drama that ensues outside of that center. And when we come from that place, we can connect with the storm and remember our place in it. And when we do that, we may be able to find a different strength. I kind of like to think about that superhero. I think her name's actually Storm, right? Where it's if you figure out how to stay calm and centered and stay in the middle of that chaos without becoming swept up in the chaos, one can start finding their own core, right, of strength and empowerment, and start tapping into different superpowers that are revealed or unleashed when we are in the middle of chaos, when we are in the middle of a storm. To be initiated into something is to become, and that's not easy work. It requires shedding. It requires allowing everything within your world to get picked up and put somewhere else. It is allowing yourself to maybe be completely decimated. It is allowing yourself to sit with the feelings of chaos and rage and grief and being scattered and maybe not having the answers and not knowing if you're going to make it through the night, and feeling powerless and out of control. All of these things come with that storm. And again, if we can learn how to wield or pull certain strings during that time, you might find that you learn how to wield that lightning yourself, right? It's an element of acceptance. Okay, I'm in a storm and I know lightning's going to strike. I don't know where and I don't know when, but it is. And so we can either take a stance of victimhood and trauma in that, or we can allow it to liberate us from whatever is no longer for our highest good in our life, right? That's what the Tower card is about. It's about allowing the systems and the structures to be toppled down so that it can be rebuilt again. This storm energy is like Uranus, right? It's unpredictable with that predictability. And it's genius and innovation, and it's the rebel, but it's there to tear down the systems and the structures that are no longer relevant, no longer serving you, that are holding you back, that are restricting and constraining you. And so if we go from victimhood and trauma rather than being, well, this was done to me and I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop, and I intuitively can know that this is going to hit the fan and I'm watching everything go down in my life and I have no control. Or we can make the really tough choice to be in the seat of agency and start making the really hard decisions to be ahead of that, right? Or to working with the energy, recognizing that it is happening for our becoming, for our purification, for our rising into our higher self. And that comes through challenge, not through ease most of the time. And I know there are some in the community who would maybe argue with me on that one, because there's talk about how the new timeline and talk of ascension no longer requires the karmic wheel. And that might be true. But I don't think it's true right now, and we're always feeding into it, into something. And so that's a different tangent on its own. But Capricorn, you do represent traditions and systems and structure and societies. And Uranus, the storm, is literally here to liberate you from it, for the sake of yourself. And that's a really big deal right now too, is Pluto is finally moving from Capricorn into the sign of Aquarius, ruled by the storm. And so there's a lot of energy that's being kicked up right now with Pluto, which is the deep transformer. He's the lord of the underworld. He is he is excavating. It's demolition. It's the atomic bomb right now for the collective soul, blowing up everything in Capricorn, so that we can finish learning from that cycle and move towards the Aquarian age for the next 20 years, which again is just demolishing all of the systems and the structures and the traditions and the conventions that have now crystallized and kept us in patterns of fear, patterns of fear is really what it is, but it's like the sake of doing things for the sake of doing things, because that's how they've always been done, even if they're not actually serving anyone. It's a little bit like an old boys club, and of course, I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm talking about the archetype of Capricorn. So please keep that in mind. So this is how you're showing up in the reading. I'm not surprised. It is really stormy weather, in the seat of the soul and astrologically right now. So so in the forces of the upper world, we have Maiden. This is a really lovely card in contrast to the storm. It actually reminds me of the story of Persephone. It's one of my favorite stories, probably because she's on my rising. But in this, we have the Maiden. And so if you're not familiar, the trio is Maiden, Mother, Crone. And in the Maiden, she represents innocence, purity, the virgin. She's kind of the princess running around with rose, in rose-colored glasses, or exists only in summertime or only in spring. If you've watched the Barbie movie, I recently just watched it, so I'm really stoked. If you want to know more about how Barbie correlates to the descent of Inanna, please go to the astrology podcast and listen to that episode. It was so good, and I'm so glad that it primed me to actually watch the Barbie movie. But it's similar in a sense, again, to the descent of Persephone, in the sense of Persephone was this princess who was kept in the upper world in bliss and paradise. And I'm going to do the short recap. Basically, Zeus makes a deal with Hades, who sees Persephone and falls in love with her and wants to wed her. But things aren't done like that back in the day. So Yeah, so without her mother's consent, you know, these boys are striking a deal in the back, and Hades comes and kidnaps or abducts Persephone. Some of the stories says that he rapes her, some don't, brings her into the underworld and makes her queen. And yeah, she's separated from her mother, from everything she knows, right? Possibly just raped. She's kidnapped. And eventually, like, I don't want to go into the whole myth, but basically Demeter, her mother, finally gets the attention of the gods, who finally strike a deal with Hades about her, and Persephone then spends 6 months in the upper world and 6 months in the lower world. The beautiful thing about that story is that some of the stories say she ends up falling in love with Hades. She loves being queen. She's like, now I got a whole queendom. I got minions. I got monsters. Like, I got a summer vacation, and I got, you know what I mean? Like, she really comes into her own through this initiation. And like pretty much all of the female initiation descent stories that we hear, there is a coming into one's power through major suffering, through the taking away of one's power as someone comes into power. It's actually a very dark tale, right? And that's why we've got the Black Woods here. And the Black Woods represents that entire initiation. It's about going into the woods and getting lost and being, like, you meet not trustworthy friends. You meet friends who do help you, and blah, blah, blah. And the whole point is that by the time you get out of the woods, you're no longer who you were when you entered those woods, right? There's a lot of stories like this. I don't have to name all of them. It would be impossible. But why is this in the upper worlds? I think this is a really softening, beautiful energy, primarily in this space of, like, first of all, remember where you come from. Remember that you come from paradise. Remember that, like, it's okay to live in summertime and have rose-colored glasses, and, like, just find your joy in being the maiden, being taken care of, enjoying your little critter friends, and, you know, the unconditional love that you have for yourself, living with your heart wide open, right? Having everyone love that for you. It's like Snow White, you know? But also there's a deep strength here that, again, it's like you might be going through the storm, but you are being initiated and you will come into your power. Like every maiden story, she faces a darkness. She faces a suffering. She faces a big, ugly, scary truth and has to fend for herself and for her life. And through that, she becomes more mature. She knows something of the world and she knows something of herself. She's no longer in those rose-colored glasses of innocence, of trusting everybody, trusting the wolf, and, you know, in the whatever. It's that kind of thing. So yeah, there's like a sadness to it and a roughness to it, but at the same time, it's a hope and it's a beauty. So there's an inherent struggle, but there's also just such a wonderful way to just to love what's there, right? And that maiden just dancing around the garden, enjoying the sunshine and that kind of thing, right? So that's in the upper world helping you. In the lower world, we have the Hunter. So this card, that's so funny because it's literally like Snow White, you know, Snow White on the top, or Hades, like Persephone and Hades, Snow White and the Hunter. We have the Princess and Bluebeard. Just give me one sec. Oak is barking to come in. And I don't know how to edit yet to make that not happen. Yeah, so the Hunter represents the predator. It represents more than that because it's in the space of the underworld. We're going with the predator aspects of the Hunter card, right? It's our addiction. It's the one that wants to rape. It's the one that sees and wants to covet and take for itself. It's the one that is unbridled conquest, right? I see what I want and I get it. No. I'm just waiting for a minute because sometimes she has more to say. And honestly, today's my heart is just a bit sad and anxious. So I'm just showing up as I am. Little tender. So thank you. Yeah, so with the hunter here, we have the dark horse, right? So there's this idea of knighthood, right? Where a knight is meant to be one, a knight in shining armor, a hero, a savior. But with this dark stallion here, there's the insinuation, right, of the dark knight, the one who has dark intentions, who isn't living by a code of honor, but will, take what it wants, and that's it. There's this prism here that's like tunnel vision, right? So it's almost like fool's gold here. It's like, here's this bright, shiny thing, and the horse is running to it, and that's all it can see. That's all that exists. And that's true when we become obsessive compulsive. And Mars and Pluto are conjunct right now. Any aspects to do with Mars and Pluto are pretty obsessive compulsive. Pluto is obsession and compulsion, and Mars is desire and action. And there's lots of other stuff going on with them too, but those cards alone make a lot of sense. Even just like the hunter and the maiden. Oh my gosh. It's just, this is so, can't even. I'm tripping out in my own head, and I'm trying to explain it the best I can, but can't always do that. But so yeah, I feel, Capricorn, like you're literally in that descent story. I feel like, you've got Pluto in the underworld looking at Persephone in the upper world and envying her and wanting to covet her. Some of that, though, I have to say, I want to color the story, because in some versions, the way that it's interpreted is that it is extremely malicious. And we can see that in today's time. We can see such polarity in the darkness and in the light. And there's so much war and pain and chaos and drama and all of these things, right? And there's almost like this vision of what you want, with envy and with desire. And we might think that we have to stoop to lower standards to get what we want, or if we don't step on someone else, someone's going to step on us kind of mentality. If everyone has to suffer and I'm going to suffer, then what difference does it make if I screw this person over in this way, or if I'm just not transparent or not honest, or I covet the truth or whatever. Maybe that's the easier way to play the game, right? But I would say there's another version of this story that's told in a kinder way, where Hades is looking at Persephone, kind of like Kali, where he's looking at Persephone in the underworld and says, man, I see her potential. She's being cut, sheltered and stunted because her mother is always going to be queen, and she's always going to shelter her, and she always wants her daughter to remain innocent. And that's natural. As parents, if we could, we would make it so our children never hurt, that they never experienced pain, because we love them so much. But that's not how they become, and that's not how they learn. And so Pluto sees Persephone and is like, I'm going to bring her to the underworld and give her freedom and initiate her so that she can blossom into her full wild potential, because I see her, right? And so there's a bit of a beauty and like Beauty and the Beast, right? A love that happens there. And so the initiation, it's hard. It's not an easy thing to go through to get there, but that is what's happening. And so if you can remember that as you walk through this time, might be helpful. I hope some of this is making sense. So in the area of the past, we have the sustainer. The sustainer also exists in a trio, so I think that's important to note that you have 2 trios showing up here, the maiden and in the sustainer. The sustainer exists in the trio of existence, which is the destroyer. The destroyer, the sustainer, and the creator. And so the sustainer is the one who gives too much. Sometimes it's the one who, there's some codependency patterns here. Just throwing that out there. So I would say just be careful. This is also hindsight. I'd say you might be coming from a place where you're overextending yourself. Capricorn can have a sacrificial element to it, right? Where it's like, how do I say? Technically, this is an Aquarian phase, but I have seen this apply to a lot of Capricorn energy in my life, so I'm going to say it anyway. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And depending on how this expresses itself, because Capricorn can also, I'm going to climb over all the bodies to the top to get to the top because I want to climb up that, social ladder or that business ladder. So it can be both. I just want to say that. But yeah, the sustainer is the one who, like if we were using a garden analogy, the sustainer is after the destroyer. The destroyer tills the soil, and then the creator plants the seeds, and then the sustainer comes and waters it and prunes them and loves them and all of that stuff, right? So the sustainer can be the one who's just putting everything into the relationships to make sure everyone around them is okay, but they're sacrificing. And this element, this trait can be really seen in the story of the constellation of Capricorn. The really short version of that story is that there is the sea goat god, and he's got lots of children, and his children keep leaving to go explore and not coming back till the point where he only has one child left, who kind of like Nemo has a, gimp leg or whatever it is. And he just told him, absolutely under no circumstances are you go to the upper world. Like, it keeps abducting all of, your brothers and sisters. You're all that I have. You can't go. And of course, he goes and he doesn't come back. And so the Sea Goat King has a choice to go look for his kids or to just stay ruler of the ocean. And he goes to look for his kids. And he pops his head up. He, ocean, can't find them, decides to go up, pops his head up, swimming around, finds this land, and there's a whole herd of, sheep, ram, whatever. But they're dumb, like they can't speak, they don't have mermaid fins, but he's looking at them and they look so familiar, and he realizes that those are all his children. And so the thing here is that if he is to take a step to take a step on land, he would become like the rest of his children, dumb like an animal, lose the ability to swim. He would just become a dumb animal. He wouldn't be king anymore. There would be no intelligence. There would be no understanding. And so just like everything, these old stories have 2 endings. And one of the endings, he leaves his children. But in the ending that I'm familiar with, he goes to land and he spends the rest of his life dumb, forgetting who he is, but with his children, and makes that choice. And so there's a deep sadness and a sacrifice that is inherent in the Capricorn archetype that will do anything for the family, right? Even if it means giving up your entire kingdom. And Capricorn is so inherently about structures and society and my place in society and my reputation. And I only have value when I have an identity in society, in a certain role. And to risk having it all toppled down, is a huge fear. It's a fear of failure. It's a fear of humiliation. It's a fear of being outcasted from society as a result. So, fear of humiliation is really the big one there. So that's in the hindsight, that's in the past. So I don't know if that's part of what's responsible for the storm here, is that maybe you've recently gone through humiliation of losing your status, maybe at like a job that you felt like you were keeping the whole place running, right? And then the ship sunk, or maybe it's your family, or maybe it's a relationship or whatever, but that's kind of what's coming up here. But when it sinks, remember, there is an initiation that's happening for our benefit. I could see too, maybe just being a bit greedy. There is a relationship between that, about being greedy and sustaining our things, because it can come from a source of like, what's my motivation? Is it, am I giving up all of these things because what I actually want is a title? Or am I giving up all these things because I want to be seen as a good dad? Am I, so just questioning the motives, because that can be sort of like the demise, if you will. It's about coveting, right? With that hunter card. And so if you take martyrdom, for example, in codependency, because there's 4 different attributes of codependency, but if martyrdom were one of your traits or motives, the layer beneath that, yes, there's sacrifice on top, but it's about being needed, and it's about control and emotional manipulation so that you get a payoff, so that you secure your place in that structure, whatever that might be, right? Maybe this doesn't apply to you at all. I don't know. I'm just talking about the cards, so please don't get offended. So that's what's going on here. So there might be some questioning, or a tower card moment about like, maybe some things are blowing up in your face right now, and it can feel really devastating and humiliating. If you're not getting what you want, or you invested all these things, or you are the good guy because you want to give all these things, but somehow now you're being seen as the bad guy or whatever. But this is reassembling everything in your life so that you can come back into innocence, by the way, and enjoy paradise and summer and spring, like as Persephone before her descent, but also so that you can find a new power within yourself, right? Because these patterns aren't serving you anymore. That's kind of like what's happening right now for everybody. There's this deep transformation happening in our souls and in our lives. Okay, thanks for just bearing with me. In the place of our future card, or foresight, we have the healer. I love this. It's a promise. I think it's a promise for you that you are coming into a space of healing, that you're coming into right relationship. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about this placement, right? Other than that, like, I think it's a really beautiful thing, because we're talking about a lot of really heavy, dark stuff, and I'm not surprised. I find that with Capricorn, there's just so much suffering that happens. Some archetypes more than others, but there's a healing. There's an egg here, by the way. So, yeah, new birth, new life, right? How do I want to say it? It's like, oh, I love it. See how this is like the molder's clay, basically, but it's a big ball, and then you've got like the same shape, the same idea. So I love that. It's like whatever you were seeding in the past might not look the same, but it's still being carried into your future. It's just a bit different, but it's for your benefit, and there's healing there. It's kind of like when you become a parent, and for the first time you're having to revisit all of this childhood trauma, or you're starting to see your parents in a more clear light and realizing like, oh shit, this is really hard. Oh, I understand this now. And there's a deeper healing that happens. There's almost like a 3-layered healing, a 3-layered transformation. Mother, maiden, crone, grandma, mother, child, father, grandpa, great grandpa. Like, there's all of this triple kind of thing that's inherent in this card, and I'm really feeling that strong. There's a deep lineage healing happening here for you. Please have the faith for that. And I love this too, because it still carries that seed of the family, and just like we talked about in that Capricorn myth, and like the abduction of children, right? There is this youthfulness and this promise of new life and family that's still inherent in this reading. Like, that's, to me, I feel like still in the reading. So it might not be like, you know, maybe it is a people, children, but maybe it's the critters, maybe it's your, you know, project or whatever. We can be parents to all of these things. So yeah, I'm not sure what is true for you, but that's what I see here. And also I just want to like pay attention to colors here. We've got yellow, so sunshine, promise of new light, new illumination. It's the solar plexus chakra, so confidence and willpower. And then we've got some nice deep reds here, which is foundation and structure. So I love that too, because it to me says like you are coming back into form, right? So if this is blowing up all the form, which is really uncomfortable, this says, don't worry, don't worry. This is still gonna be, you know, grounded. You're still gonna have all the things root chakra, so your ancestors and your Maslow's hierarchy of needs and systems and structures and foundation. It's just doesn't, you know, doesn't look the same right now. It doesn't feel the same, but like it will come. Don't worry about it. And you are going to shine your light, and you are going to feel confident, and you are going to feel good. And this is just part of the healing process, baby. And you were, you know what I mean? Like it's just part of the healing process. So I love that. Let's just pull an Archangel Michael card. Yeah, my heart's really with you. And just one foot in front of the other, you know. Really try to spend time, I'd say, honoring the maiden within you, the one that can smell the flowers and enjoy the grass under her feet and drink the coffee outside and admire the trees. Like, find joy for yourself. Find pleasure. That's part of what this is like self-pleasure, right? And joy. There's satisfaction here, unconditional love and compassion. So really, really drawing that in for yourself, please. This is it. And so the card that you get is spend more time outdoors. It says, thank you for motivating me to spend more time outdoors and for helping me relax and enjoy connecting with nature. So do some of that. It'll help you ground. You know, really important for those earth signs, for all of us. But so I hope you got something from this. I know it was a little bit crunchy. I appreciate you sticking with me, especially as, you know, Oka's broken and I had to go get her and stuff. But yeah, I'm just so proud of you. I hear you. Rest as much as you can. Eat good food. All the things to take care of yourself as you walk through this initiation and get restructured for the better so you turn out absolutely freaking glamorous. Okay, thanks. Bye.